Hi friends, it's Diane back here on Monday, September the 1st. We are doing the 12 days of the holidays, and in my welcome message, I neglected to mention that we are also featuring online exclusives, which are launching in September. So also starting on the 3rd of September with the mini catalog, you will also be able to purchase the newest online exclusives. I'm not using them in my particular presentation, but some of my demonstrator friends will be doing that. So without further ado, let's get going. This is the catalog if you haven't seen it. If you need a copy, please contact your demonstrator who invited you. The project that I'm making is going to feature a couple of products. The first one was the branching out bundle. I really liked this stamp set when I saw it in the catalog, and I particularly loved the die. So the feature that we're going to be using on this card, there'll be a little bit of stamping, and I'll show you another project where I did use a fair bit of the stamps in here, but the star of the show is going to be the dies that come in here, branching out dies. They are going to make the next technique so easy to do. All right, so there's that. It's on page 50 of the mini. I'm also going to feature some fun new paper. Here it is here. I want to get the correct name of it. It is called Peaceful Garden. It comes in 12 by 12 sheets. And if you're a demonstrator, you probably saw this a little earlier this year because it was a bundle of products we were able to purchase for Creativity Now. When you're a demonstrator, you get to participate in all kinds of events like early release. And so this was a few hours, 2 hours, 3 hour get together which featured this particular suite, which is also in the mini catalog. So it's like an early launch and early release. I have 5 sheets of the paper left, so I'll show you what the patterns look like. This is the one I'm going to use in my presentation today. So this is one side, this is the second side with some stars on it, perfect for Christmas and winter projects. This is some leaves, and on the other side, a more muted color, something you might like for boxes or 3D projects and treat holders. Here's another one of the patterns, also I think great for 3D projects because it doesn't really matter what orientation the paper is in for this pattern. These are gorgeous, and the stamp set that comes with has a die with these lovely doves on it. So very directional. So you want to think about that when you're using this paper for other projects in mind. And then here's the doves sort of all over the page. I guess it does have an up and down when I hold it this way. I think I would use this in 3 by 3 or 4 by 5 1/4 inch squares. Rectangles. And I know for some of you that is not the size of your standard card. I'm in North America, so I'm going to be talking about the imperial measurements for the cards. All right, so let's start off. And I thought this time I would really start from the beginning and explain how to cut the paper and such, because we might have some newbies here joining us. So you can skip past this if you already know how to do it. So my card is going to have a card base, which is 4 1/4 by 11 scored in half. So I'm going to take my typical standard piece of card and in Secret C, and I'm going to score it first. And usually what I do when I'm making the cards on that kind of orientation, when they open like this, there's a sneak peek. I will score it first. So for that orientation, I'm going to place my card in the trimmer at 5 1/2 inches. I'm going to score it a few times up and down, and then I'm going to turn it and line it up on the short side at 4 1/4. Now I have 2 card bases ready to go. And if I only need it for a layer, I can just cut that piece off at the fold anyway. So definitely useful. We also need a layer, which is 4 by 5 1/4. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to cut this piece of Misty Moonlight. Now I typically cut it in half. This is just my way of doing things. I'll cut it at 5.5. I know I only need it at 5.25, but then I've got most of the rest of the cast off paper in the longest possible without a whole bunch of little pieces left over. So I'm going to cut this down to 4 inches. And then I'm going to cut this to 5.25. So then I just have this small bit of scrap. You could put it inside a card or you could toss it. That's what I'm going to do. And so I've got my layer that I need. And then I'm going to need a piece of white for the inside that is also 4 by 5.25. So we're going to repeat the process. I'll take my white, I'll cut in half at 5.5. Tuck that aside for something else. I'll flip this around and cut it to 4 inches. So this piece is just a little bit wider, but it'll be good for when I want to do layers or labels or die cutting images that will go on the card for stamping. And then I'm going to cut this down to 5.25. That's just the way my brain thinks. That's just the way that I do it. Everybody is different. Oh, we need this. We're going to cut the paper. So the patterned paper, I need it to be 3 7/8 by 5 1/8. So this is my leftover piece. I think I'll just go along the longest side because this is already cut down. It was a 12 by 12 and it's cut down. So I will cut it over here to 5 1/8 tall. 5 1/8 tall. I always say it twice because you measure twice, cut once, right? 3 7/8 wide. All right, that is my piece that's going to be the focal point on what I'm working on. Alrighty, that is all the cutting done. And when I'm done with that, I have some gorgeous pieces to work with here. All right, there's my card base. Let's get it going. And the technique I'm doing is called triple layer stamping. But like I said, there's going to be a way easier way to do this than the traditional way. All right, here's my 4 by 5.25, or my 1 layer in if you're using a different measurement. This is going to go on the inside of my card. If I wanted to stamp it like I did in another version, such as this, I would do all my stamping and that first before I adhered it on the inside of my card. Just because I could make a mistake and then it's not already glued down, or I might change my mind partway through. So just a suggestion on that. This time I'm just going to glue it in. Actually, yeah, I'm just going to glue it in. So I'm going to show you a couple of samples of other ways I've done the same card layout. All right, so I'm going to glue this on the inside. And that's my space to write my message. And I've also been known to stamp in there afterwards. I just find it's so much safer to just do it first before it goes in. So let's set that aside. Let's pull in the dies. The branching out bundle looks like this, with these gorgeous spindly leaf pieces, and then these flowers that go around, and a whole bunch of greetings. So this really has you covered. We talked about this being about 12 days of holidays, and holidays can also include very Christmas, maybe Christmas greetings or Thanksgiving or Halloween, and that. This stamp set, I think, from our family to yours would be lovely for a Christmas card or a holiday greeting card. But what I like about this stamp set is it also has some standard ones. I'd use the hello on a scrapbooking page. I would use friend on a scrapbooking page. To a very special someone, happiest birthday wishes. Those are things I would, of course, use on other greeting cards. So I find that it's a really versatile set. Inside here, I just happen to store my dies that match the stamp set together. These ones here that are the layers that are the star of the show, I will typically put those on my magnetic board because I will use them with other stamp sets as well, but these pieces here stay with the stamp set. All right, so I want to just mention something. I should probably show you the card now. This is basically what we're going to be doing with the triple layer stamping. So if you're new to stamping and new to techniques, maybe you haven't heard that one before. It's where you would cut 3 pieces Okay, similar to this, you would cut 3 pieces, you would glue them together, and then you would do all your stamping, and then you would mat them and layer them on. And that can be a bit precarious, I'll give you that. So what I just totally loved about these new dies is they're spaced far enough apart that you don't need to cut 3 separate pieces of paper. You can stamp all on your one layer and cut them out with the dies, add the mats that match behind, and you've got it all in one fell swoop and you're saving a bunch of paper. A very cool technique. So here's one that I did with actual stamping, the typical triple layer stamping. And I'm not going to show you how to do that one there, but that's how this kind of looks. And then this is the one we're going to replicate today, where instead of stamping, I've just used a piece of pattern paper. And that's this piece we cut a little bit earlier. That's this piece that we're going to replicate from Peaceful Garden. You with me so far? Awesome. Okay, I'm going to show you how we cut these down. So we're starting with a piece of Misty Moonlight that is 4 by 5 1/4, and we have a piece of pattern paper which is just slightly smaller at 3 7/8 by 5 1/8. You see, if you were to actually put it on a card, you would have it just layered up. We're going to use the dies to make this work out. Very cool. Okay, so how you do this is you've got 3 dies and the main piece. I'm sorry if I'm looking a little confused here. I don't want to pull these out. Here's what I'm going to do. All right. So if you look at this card here, the background is Cajun Craze, and that is what's replicated by the Misty Moonlight here. So we want a straight edge on it, but we also want the scalloped edge of the next one in. So we are using this first die. So if you were to number your dies from the outside in, so the biggest one is die number 1, you would place that die number 1 on your 4 by 5 1/4. And then you're going to take die number number 4, and that is also going to go on there. And you don't have to worry about it being perfectly equidistant from the other one. Close enough is close enough. This will give you the layer on the outside, the first die cut, and this die cut. So that was, let's go over that again. If we're numbering them, that was die number 1 and die number 4. I'm going to do them on your cardstock. Then you're going to take die number 2, and on your patterned paper, you're going to put die number 2 and die number 5. So you see there's quite a wide edge between them. That is what's going to help create, cover the space in between. So I've already got one of these die cut up. I've already done the patterned paper off camera because my die cutting machine will make the table shake a little bit. So this is my original piece. It was all like this. Then I took this die, number 2, and placed it there, and die number 5 and placed it there. And by cutting it out, I ended up with the 3 pieces that we need for layering. Now I'm going to pull in my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. I'm going to show you cutting the cardstock one. My machine's pretty heavy. So if you have the white Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine, you know you need to put your base plate and then this die cutting plate number 2, and then a piece of acrylic plate, your material. I'm going to try to get this centered. I'm not going to lose any concern over it. I'm not going to worry myself. I'm going to do my best to center that middle piece. We have some wiggle room, folks. It's all good. Now I also have these little roll of, I think it's called labeling tape from Amazon that I sometimes use to hold it in place, which we can do here, or you can use sticky notes. That works just as well. And I reuse them over and over until they're not sticky anymore. Then you put your acrylic plate on top, and apologies for the wiggling that's about to happen with the camera, but what happens on the table. And we'll get our piece out. Now it's not too necessary to keep your pieces together with your cardstock because that's totally, you're going to know which ones go where. But if you are using pattern paper, kind of want to have the orientation. You don't want to get these turned upside down, and then when you go to glue it together, it's not the same, not the flowing of the pattern. Great, so here's our pieces. Get rid of our dies. Well, not get rid of them, but move them over to the side. All right, now we're ready to pull our card base back in, our secret C, and start putting our card together. So like I said, normally with this technique, triple layer stamping, oops, it's going to, you're going to have to cut 3 separate pieces, glue them together, do your stamping, and then put your layers on. This is way, way easier. Right, so I've pulled in my craft mat because I'm a liquid glue girl, and if you're going to use Stampin' Seal, this is a very thin border. You're going to want to have something down to keep your workspace from getting super sticky. So this is the large outside piece. I'm going to place it down first, and it's leaving a nice little border all the way around. And see, liquid glue helps me have a second to take a breath and make sure that it's right in the right spot when I get started. All right, the next layer is going to be the biggest one of the patterned paper. And if you had done a whole stamping and cut the dies out in the same way as I did with this one, so with this sample I used the piece of 3 7/8 by 5 1/8. I did all my stamping and then I cut those 3 pieces out. Well, then it would be the largest piece of what you stamped. So I better go back on here because we know how sticky we get. At least I do in my craft room. There we go. Add a little bit of that. Oh, so when I pick it up, because I naturally picked it up upside down, I want to make sure that I'm keeping it right side up. It has a teeny border, very small border, just a 1/16 of an inch on all 4 sides. Okay, now we've got this big piece in the middle, but we're going to be covering this up because this next piece of cardstock that goes in there, see how it covers it up nicely? Covers up all that excess and also gives you those lovely little flourishes. So this one's a little bit thicker border, so a little bit easier to glue. But I am using my silicone craft sheet quite a bit. I'm going to show you when I'm getting ready to put the stamp on the block that I also use it for that. So we layer this centered as best you can again and put that down. Then back to the DSP. And we'll go here and we'll see that our pattern is continuing on the corners. So anytime you have a die, and it's a series of dies, which layer and are equidistant, I suppose, or like, what's the right word? They're all the same shape and they sort of go down in the same graduation, then this is going to work. This technique is going to work really well. See? It's just flowing off with its background border. And then down to this piece, which I will actually put some in the middle. Such pretty paper. I think I'm going to be using, I don't know. I always say that. I'm going to use this for my Christmas cards, and then I decide I need a variety because there's so many papers and so little time to make all those Christmas cards. All right, and then our last one, again, just double checking before we glue it down that we're flowing the pattern into the other segments. All right, so that is it. 2 quick cuts and some gluing together pulls it all together. And then I wanted to do a label that would go on here. What did I decide I would do with this one? I think I'm going to do from our family to yours. You know what? I'll do sent with lots of love because I haven't used that stamp set yet. So that stamp on this series of cards yet. So now I'm going to show you a little trick here. So this is the smallest of the dies within this set, and I wanted to make a die that was a perfect size for my greeting. So I took a piece of white paper, just like this, and I made my own size of label. So I put it in my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine just like that. You could do the whole thing, I suppose, but I didn't want to waste any paper. So I'm going to make it a little bit taller than I need. So then when I cut it out, it looked like this. And then I turned it around and I did the other side. Let me show you so you get an idea of what I'm talking about. Pull the cut and emboss back in. And the top plate. All right, so just to make it easier, let's do a full layer. And here's another tip that I've learned recently, and that's that whenever possible, if you can put your dies on an angle going through your Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine, you'll get a whole lot less of that cracking and bending that happens. So rather than putting it through like this, which is kind of the way you think, right, to have it straight, turn it on an angle. It's not always possible because the die might be too big or your paper might be too big, but we'll see how it makes a little bit less noise. So we're just going to put it all the way through like that. It have one crack, but not a whole bunch of cracks. All right, and then I'm going to show you how I'm going to line up to make the smaller size label that I would like. And I'm going to just set it up on an angle like that. So now I want this to cut off so that my layer is a little bit smaller. I can make it this size or whatever you want. What you're going to do is push those teeth from the die into the existing piece that you've cut, the existing sort of track. So you have to kind of play with it with your fingers. You'll feel it catch. It'll catch on there. I've got it a bit on an angle. Probably should tape it down, but we're going through just to show you how to do it. And, oops, sorry, wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. And then voila! I have my die, smaller version, using the same dies. You don't see any extra cut lines because we've put the die teeth right in the tracks that were there. So there we go, ready for another one. I kind of measured for the greeting so that it was the size that I wanted. Alrighty, we're ready to stamp and add our ribbon. So sometimes I find, especially with a bigger photopolymer stamp, that when I go to pick it up or put it on the block, I get a little air bubble in between it. Mostly it happens with a bigger one or one that you need it to be straight and it gets all curvy. So I find if I just stick it down onto my my craft sheet and place my block down, it picks up because it doesn't attach to there. Picks up easily, no air bubbles, and it's all good. Use Misty Moonlight ink, ink her up, and then I'm going to put it in the center, lean in, right over top, and press and hold. As I teach the ladies at the community center, for stamping, the success is light tap, because we all know people that they're heavy-handed. And so it's, ladies, a light tap. If you look at it after you've added the ink and you think, there's not quite enough ink on there, trust me, there is. Use your scratch paper to try. And then press and hold for 3 to 5 seconds. That's where the magic happens, and that's how the ink attaches itself nicely to the cardstock. All right, so we can put that aside, and I have some of the corresponding ribbon that's Misty Moonlight and Silver, and wasn't quite sure what I was going to do for this. I know I'm going to pop it up. I think maybe I'm just going to do a fold over. It's quite thick. I think it's 3/8 of an inch? 1.3 centimeters or ½ inch, so it's a little bit bigger or wider than I'm comfortable with doing a bow. So I'm just going to cut what I call the breast cancer ribbon, because it has that ribbon look, and then I'm going to stick it on here, and I'm going to attach it with dimensionals. But typically what I'll do is I'll grab my, because you know I'm a liquid glue girl, I'll grab my tear and tape, and I shall put a piece down the edge, down the center of it, and peel that off. You can use glue dots, you can use the Stampin' Seal if you like. I'm going to get my ribbon looking nice again, and then I'm just going to pop that down on there, using it so that I can see it face on. So that holds it in place. My hands are free now to add my dimensionals, and I do go over the ribbon with my dimensionals to give it a little bit more holding it in place. I could probably put another dimensional up here, and that's going to hold everything in place nicely for me. Keep it from falling off, because that would not be good. And my little backings. And then I can put it on here. I can either put it, I think, you know what, I think I'll actually center it. Always, there we go. I may have to wiggle this a little bit. There we go. To get it the way that I want, and trim off a little bit more if you need to. But that is the finished card. So very simple way of doing the triple layer. So I'll pull the other samples in and explain again that with this one, I did all the stamping first, and then this one I did exactly the same thing as I showed you here, and did some different size cutting for the labels to personalize them, so there wasn't so much white space. Well, I hope you liked that. Thank you for watching. I am going to be doing a live tip, which will be, maybe 5 minutes, maybe a little bit longer. And I'm going to come up at the next start of the hour. I think I might have mentioned to somebody that it would be at 12 noon, but I'm actually going to come up at 10 a.m. So that's about 30 minutes from now, and do that tip for you live, and hope you'll all get on your day. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for being a part of this, and we'll see you later. And tomorrow is Angie Oldenburg's day. Have a great day. Bye.